is Joanna. I was born and raised in Mexico City for the first 10 years of my life, and it's almost been 7 years since I moved to the United States with my mom and my dad.
What were some of your most prominent memories of Mexico?
Some of the most prominent memories are both good and bad memories. I loved the community and the culture in Mexico. It was really nice. The food was also a really big thing that I enjoyed. But I also remember seeing a lot of people in the streets that were homeless and a lot of dogs as well, just on the streets. So my family, we kind of grew up in a lower to middle income class. So we never really had enough money to help those in need. But it was something that was really inspiring to me. I wanted to help those people. I remember I used to have a game when I was younger where every single time we would go somewhere on the car, I would look out the window and count how many dogs I could see on the street. And it was really disheartening and heartbreaking. But I always imagined myself trying to help them, giving them a home, especially because I liked having a dog so much. I always wanted to take them in.
Are you able to do anything about those issues now that you're older?
Now that I'm older, not really. I really wish I could. But especially since I moved to the United States, I've lost contact with a lot of my culture and just I've been to Mexico probably once or twice in the 7 years that I've been here. But I still try to find ways to stay connected.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Well, an example would be my program oral inter piece that I'm doing this year. That's one of the main things. Another one is I to listen to Mexican music most of the time, which is something that will help me later on. Just understand pop culture in Mexico, as well as having friends that are Mexican as well.
Can you elaborate a little more on your speech?
Sure. So this year, I want to do a program oral interpiece on the spicy Latina stereotype that is really prominent in basically all sorts of media, where someone that is of Mexican heritage or Hispanic heritage will be portrayed as being overly sexualized. And obviously, being Latina, it's made me furious. And I've experienced people telling me that the way that I act is feisty or aggressive. And by doing a piece on this, I'm basically advocating for change and I'm raising awareness of how this stereotype impacts those that are within it.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your experiences?
I've had a lot of experiences. I would say when I first moved here, it was really hard to understand a language. And one of my biggest insecurities growing up in the United States was having such a prominent accent. And sometimes it's still something that I deal with today. Especially when I get nervous or really frustrated, it will come out. And it's something that has always made me self conscious, especially when other people mention it or they ask about it. I've had people tell me that the way that I act or the way that I behave is really flirtatious, even though it's not something that I try to do or would ever want to do.
And how does that make you feel when people make such accusations?
Well, it makes me feel really frustrated as well, makes me feel really angry because I shouldn't have to fit within someone's idea of way that I should behave. And to be honest with you, I am also very self-conscious about my curves and just the way that my body is built. And so when people mention it or people tell me these sorts of ideas, it just makes me even more self-conscious about them.
Well, I think you're very pretty, Joanna.
Thank you. I think you're very pretty too.
Do you think you'll face these same accusations or discrimination if you stayed in Mexico?
Yeah, totally. That's another bad thing about Mexico. If I was living there still, I would probably face even more catcalling because the culture there is also just really horrible when it comes to their treatment of women. And I think one of the best things about the United States of America is that it is safer than the streets in Mexico. For instance, I could go on a walk right now. And while there is still a chance that something bad could happen, it's not nearly as high as if I went on a walk at the same time in Mexico.
Is this one of the reasons your family left Mexico?
So the main reason why my family left is because of my dad's job. There was a really big earthquake that hit Mexico City. And out of all the damage that happened, one of the main buildings that was demolished also happened to be the office where my dad worked. And so, because of this, they actually offered him a position to move to the United States for the same company, but in a different location. And so he accepted, and he brought us with him a year later.
So you came to the United States in 2018?
Yeah, I think it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was June 2018.
So that was around when school started. How was school for you your first year?
It was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard because my school in Mexico didn't teach English. So you can imagine how that went. Going to a different country with no friends, no family, and having to learn the language in what was basically a really short period of time. When I went to elementary school, I actually had to be assigned a second language teacher that taught me how to speak. I think the first year of school that I was there.
Were there any
And
friends or parents or siblings that were able to help you out with the transition?
not really. I'm an only child. I had no siblings growing up and basically no family here either. My parents, other than my dad, also didn't speak any English. My grandparents don't know how to speak English. And so, on top of having that teacher that taught me English, I also had to read a lot of books. And that was actually what helped me learn English so quick. The way that I would do it is I would sit in our living room in our apartment and I would have a translator on one hand, like on my mom's phone, and I would have a book on the other. And I would just read pages off of the book and I would translate every word I didn't understand. And that was the way that I learned English. So, yeah, you could say it was hard, but I got the hang of it. And look at me now. I'm trilingual. Yay. And also, that's another thing that my mom always makes fun of me for because she knows that I'm like such a big like nerd and she's jealous of the fact that I was able to like catch on to English pretty quickly. Meanwhile, today she still struggles with her accent and just like speaking to people and understanding them. Sometimes she'll have me act as a translator whenever we're in group settings.
Has that ever added any pressure to you, or do you enjoy?
I enjoy helping my mom. I will say I am a big advocate of trying and forcing her to learn how to speak English for herself so that she doesn't always have to rely on me. But it's not necessarily a burden. If anything, yeah, I would say I enjoy it. I like helping her. And yeah, I use it as an excuse to force her to learn English.
How did you feel about the move to the United States at first?
Was definitely more upset. Growing up, I was really shy as well. You wouldn't think of it now with such a big personality that I have, but because I used to be so shy, I only had two childhood friends that I would always talk to. And when I moved, it was really hard for me to let go of them and be more open to having new friends and getting to meet new people. And since I also moved here so at such a young age, I didn't really realize just how dangerous Mexico really is. And it isn't until later that I now realize that it was probably for the best because I was able to have a lot more freedom in the United States than I think I would have ever had if I'd been raised all my life in Mexico.
You said you moved here in 2018, right? So that's 1 year before COVID-19. Did COVID influence your transition in any way?
But yeah, that was another thing. I only had a year of trying to adapt to a new country before the pandemic hit. And obviously, that also did not help with me making friends or getting to meet new people because now I had online school. Really didn't get to meet a lot of people. I was also really shy back then. And because of all this anxiety, you could even say, I would say social anxiety that I had, I started stress eating and I gained a lot of weight during the pandemic. And so my self confidence also went down during that time because I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I basically had a few friends, but I didn't really connect with them at the time. And while I was still trying to learn English, I was also adapting to a country that I didn't really know, and that was in the middle of a crisis.
How did you overcome your social anxiety?
If I'm being honest, speech and debate. I have to give credit where credit is due. I ended up trying out for speech and debate. I got it somehow. And that forced me to be more social. And yeah, that was probably the biggest thing that got me over my social anxiety because it forced me to talk to people. It forced me to talk in front of people, which was also a really big thing that I didn't like at all. And yeah.
Have you ever faced any discrimination or stereotypes in the United States? I know you talked about the feisty Latina stereotype, but were there any others that were pushed onto you?
I think there were two main instances. The first was where we were doing a debate in class. I give a fire speech, and then he tells me, "Oh my God, now I know why all Latinas are so feisty." And then afterwards, another one of my classmates came up, and after he gives a really good speech, makes another comment saying, "Oh my God, imagine if my classmate and Joanna had babies," sort of insinuating that we would make good babies that could debate really well. I don't understand. It was probably the first time I had ever experienced racism or any form of discrimination in school. But outside of school, I remember one time I was running. I do almost every other day. And as I was running, I remember this red car crossed the street. And as they crossed the street, they honked their car at me. And then this guy, this American white guy, he basically rolls down his window, slows down his car, and he's like, "Nice ass." And then he speeds off. And so, obviously, as a minor, it was very hard to hear because I never asked for this. I don't appreciate it, and I can't help it. It was so unnecessary. What did you think you accomplished doing that? Here's the thing. I honestly don't understand how they expect me to react when they do stuff like that. I genuinely don't understand. And it was another thing. Like, not necessarily discrimination, but I have had multiple instances where my dad's mother, meaning my paternal grandmother, has made weird comments about me and my future children. There was this one instance where she was visiting from Mexico for a month, I think. And one day she comes up to me and she makes this weird comment being like, "Oh my God, so do you have a boyfriend of anything?" I think she was trying to like make conversation with me. And so I obviously tell her no, because all the boys at my school are stupid. But then instead of laughing, which was the expected reaction, she instead made this comment being, "Well, don't you want to get married? Don't you want to have children in the future?" And so obviously at that point, I just went into the talk. I didn't say anything. I was just like staring at her dead in the face because how do you respond to that? Being like, "Yeah, I do want children in the future, but not with any of these guys." And also, I was 15, 16 at the time. I was way too young to be thinking about getting pregnant with anybody.
Was this a one-time thing?
She makes these comments every now and then, every single time that she visits, which isn't really that often. But when she does come to visit, it's typically for a month. So she stays here for a while. Even though I like her, I think she's really nice. And I think it's just her ideals that are something that bothers me. But I don't have anything against her as a person.
Well, thank you for being honest. How would you respond to these situations if you could go back and change the past?
It's really sad to say, but I would probably wear pants or something instead of wearing my usual skirt in order to minimize the risk of getting catcalled while I'm out running, which shouldn't be something I need to do, but unfortunately it is. And when it comes to my grandmother, I would probably try and clarify that, yeah, I do want to have children in the future, but not because I'm expected to or because it's something that I'm born to do. It's something that I just would like to have in the future. I think being a mother is a really amazing thing, but I want to become a mother when I want to, on my own terms, at an age where I feel like I'm ready. And back then, and even right now, is not the age to do that. And because of that, I also think that I'm not emotionally mature enough as it is to have a boyfriend. And so, yeah, I'll just try and explain to her that I don't need a boyfriend and I don't need to be looking for my future husband right now. I would probably never say this to her, especially because she and her son are both very stubborn. I think it runs in the family. They can get really heated in arguments. And I think it'd be best if I just stick to my own ideals and don't let what others expect of me to define what I'm supposed to do.
It's very mature of you.
Thank you, thank you. I try. It gets hard sometimes, but I try.
How has your view of the United States changed after living here for 6, 7 years?
I realize the United States isn't as great as it used to be. I think when I was growing up, I had this internalized view that the United States was just this amazing place. The whole American dream thing, it was something that my parents bought into. And even at one point, I did too. And while I do think that it is true to an extent, now, after years of living here, I realize America is still a country. It has its flaws. Some people don't achieve the American dream and never will. And I also think the healthcare system is horrible. I think that is something that we should fix immediately, just because I've also had a lot of instances where I've had medical emergencies and I've had to go to the hospital. And it's only after that I realized just how expensive it really is. And I think realizing that has made me aware of the fact that, yeah, America is great, but it's also really expensive. And there are issues that need to be addressed that we are just completely ignoring.
When things get tough, like when medical bills start piling up or when people say these weird things to you, what helps you stay positive?
I wouldn't have said this 2, 3 years ago, but I think the biggest way that I can cope with all my emotions and everything and just life in general, I think it'd be getting physical exercise. Any sort of activity that keeps my mind off of whatever I'm overthinking just helps me. I got into running 2 to 3 years ago, and ever since then, it's been my go to when it comes to like handling these situations. Every single time I get overwhelmed by anything, I will just go on a run. No matter the time, no matter like how hot it is in Arizona, because I've trained myself to run in over 100-degree temperatures just so that I have the excuse to be able to go run at any like point of the day. Running has really helped me not only grow as a person, but also cope with these feelings.
If there was one thing you wish that everyone could understand about your story and your journey, what would it be?
Oh, wow, that's good. I think if there was one thing that I could have people understand about my story is that I am a lot of things. And I wish people understood that when they looked at me, they weren't just looking at pretty face or someone that was Hispanic. I am a lot more than that. I'm extremely complex, but also I'm a human being. I'm not some sort of alien. I'm not exotic. I'm not supposed to be flirtatious. It's really hard to explain this feeling, but when you look at people around you, you don't realize most of the time that all of these people have lives that are just as equally as complex and diverse as yours. And I think I would want more people to understand that I am those people. I have a story, I have a life that is extremely complicated, even though it's only been 17 years. And I wish that they didn't put me into these sorts of labels that simplify the story that has made me who I am.